Hello, I'm Sam with Journey in Board Game Design, and this is Mechanic vs. Mechanic, Episode 1. Enjoy. So on Mechanic vs. Mechanic, first off, let's explain what is this video series. Mechanic vs. Mechanic is where we take a game, and our example will be Monopoly. We take the game of Monopoly, we're going to look at the game as a whole, we're going to look at some of the aspects and mechanisms, we're going to figure out, let's take this mechanic, let's take it completely out of the game. And then we're going to ask a couple questions. Is this game a better game? Is it more enjoyable? Is it more streamlined? Does it just work better? And then we're going to look at adding something else back into the game. Looking at it then and asking those exact same questions. Is this now a better game? Okay, today in Mechanic vs. Mechanic, this is episode 1, we're going to look at an old classic game, the game of Monopoly. Now, most of you should have played the game of Monopoly growing up. If you haven't played the game or you don't know the game, just go on YouTube or Google and type in the game Monopoly, and you'll find many different reviews, many different people playing it, playthroughs, and you'll probably find 1,000 different variations of the game Monopoly. Ones with different themes and ones that play slightly different. Well, today in Mechanic vs. Mechanic, episode 1, we're going to talk about the game of Monopoly. And we're going to talk about taking a small little mechanic out. This is actually a house rule mechanic that I grew up calling Jackpot. So, what is Jackpot? Well, in the actual game of Monopoly, there's a space in one of the corners called free parking. And normally, if I remember correctly, in the rules, you just land there and nothing happens. There's no harm, there's no negative, no positive things that happen to your character when they land in that space. But in the house rules that I played growing up in a large family, we had a house rule called Jackpot. And so at the beginning of the game, we would take $200 and put it in the middle of the board, and anybody that landed on free parking would actually inherit and win that jackpot. And as you play the game, you'd run into certain cards or places that would tell you to give the bank X amount of dollars, whether you're buying something or whether it's for something negative. Instead of giving the bank that money, what we decided to do in this house rule was actually put it in the jackpot. So as you're playing a game 45 minutes an hour, or if it was like the game that I used to play, it would be 2 or 3 hours long, or sometimes more than one day. That jackpot would build up over time. And eventually someone would land on that free parking and they would inherit or they would win a large amount of money. We'd then start back, put $200, and we'd start over again. So now what we're going to do in Mechanic vs. Mechanic, we're going to take that mechanic, or that mechanism, theme, whatever you want to call it, we're going to take that out of the game. We're going to then ask a couple questions that I've got over here on my right, on my computer. It'd probably be your left. Let's see these questions. Is the game still playable? Yes, because this is a house rule. You can play with just the original rules, and it's still completely playable. Does it make the game more fun or less? I would say it makes the game quite a bit less fun if you're taking that mechanic out, where you have a chance of winning a large sum of money. Does it streamline the game? I don't think it streamlines the game in the aspect of what the real definition of streamline is. It might make the game shorter. Oftentimes, people who are in last position or towards the end in place ranking, which was normally me when I was younger, we would oftentimes strive to hit that jackpot in order to help ourselves catch up with everybody else. Would it make it to the table more or less? I would say it would make it to the table quite a bit less. If you took out the jackpot, or if you just played with the original rules, I don't think it would be as enjoyable, or be as enjoyable for other people to play this game. So what we're going to do, we've taken that mechanic out, we've looked at what the game would look like without that mechanic. We're going to now replace it. What are we going to replace it with? Well, what I'm calling it is eminent domain. Instead of free parking or jackpot for the house rule, we're going to add it in a space, same place where free parking was, called eminent domain. Anytime you land on that space, you are allowed to purchase any other character's location. So if Kevin over here has Park Place and he's got 2 houses, or if he's got a hotel on it, If I land on eminent domain, I can then turn around and say, okay, how much did Kevin pay for Park Place? $350, whatever that cost is. I'm going to pay the $350, the original cost, and I'm going to be able to take his location along with any houses or hotels he might have on that location. Now, as you can see, this is going to be kind of a take that mechanic, and it's going to make the game quite a bit more aggressive and mean-spirited, because you're going to be taking locations from other people. Now, you can't land on the space and take the location from the bank. You have to take it from a person who already has that location. So let's say, for example, you're playing the game and you just keep landing on the same Reading Railroad, or you keep landing on this place, and you're just tired of landing and paying the fines for it. So you land on eminent domain, you can then purchase that location from another person based on the original cost on the board. So that's my thoughts of changing out free parking with eminent domain. Let's go back and let's ask some of those same questions. Is it still playable? Yep, it's definitely still playable. Does it make the game more fun or less? Well, growing up, and even if I had to play it now, I wouldn't choose to play it, but if I had to play it now, I think it would be much more enjoyable to be able to sit back and play a game for 45 minutes or an hour, sometimes 2 or 3 hours, and watch one other person build up their empire, build up these locations and hotels, and then land on this space and know, bam, just like that, I can take that location right out of underneath them, and they have no options in the matter. I think that would be quite a bit more enjoyable. I do think it would make the game even longer, but I would find it to be more enjoyable for the first probably hour. Next question is, does it streamline the game? Versus not having it in, no. I think if you add that aspect in, it just makes things a little more complicated in regards to purchasing other people's stuff. It would also, I think, just kind of bog the game down, because then you'd have a lot of people trying to hit that eminent domain in order to try to attack whoever was in the lead, the king, so to speak, and try to knock them out. Would it make it to the table more or less? I think it would be more enjoyable the times that it did make it to the table, but I don't think using jackpot versus eminent domain, I don't think it would make it to the table substantially more than what it already did when we had the house rule for jackpot. I would love to hear what you think about Mechanic versus Mechanic, Episode 1, Monopoly. Drop me a comment below or send me a message. Also, check out all the other sites you can find me at. Thanks for watching Mechanic vs. Mechanic. If you are new to the tabletop gaming experience and our wonderful hobby, check out my favorite channels below in the link to find more great games to play and news on our hobby. I'm Sam Robertson with Journey in Board Game Design, and you, have a wonderful day.